yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
In Overlord, extremely early on, we encounter the Sunlight Scripture of the Slain Theocracy, one of their 6 secret military forces. They're a group of individuals dedicated to the teachings of the God of Life, specialized in wiping out communities of Demihumans and Grotesques, and they've done a good job. Demihumans in the northwest of the continent have had it rough in the past few hundreds of years. Once upon a time, they were near the top of the food chain, only having to compete with each other and only being completely outclassed by the ancient dragon lords who held dominion over the entire world. But all that changed 600 years before the current story, with the arrival of the 6 great gods, whom the God of Life was a part of. 6 players from Yggdrasil who saved humanity from the brink of total extinction, and built a sanctuary for humanity that would remain a powerhouse nation, even into the current era. Although maybe not for much longer.
I'm alive!
Demihumans were still an ever-present threat from all sides, even with the Sunlight Scripture working overtime, though they wouldn't take their biggest hit until the arrival of the 8 Greed Kings, 100 years after the 6 gods and 500 years before the current story. These 8 players went on a world conquest bender, and in doing so wiped out huge amounts of demi-human species, though this apparently wasn't from deliberate targeting. Rather, Demihumans were less inclined to bend the knee to the Greed Kings than the human species were. This conquest allowed humanity comfortably outside the realms of extinction, and they would go on to proliferate and dominate the northwest of the continent. In the modern day, demihumans in this part of the continent only exist upon the edges of human civilization, such as the depths of the Great Forest of Tob and the Azerlesia Mountains, with one exception. To the south of the Riestes Kingdom, between the Slain Theocracy and the Roble Holy Kingdom, lies a large region known as the Abellion Hills. These hills are home to many demihumans who fight amongst themselves and regularly threaten neighboring humans. In particular, the Roble Holy Kingdom built a massive stone wall to separate their peninsula from demihuman incursions, but even that wouldn't truly stop them. These hills and the demihumans who inhabit them are the focus of this video, as in the future of Overlord they would become unwilling soldiers in an army led by a demon emperor, which is the focus of volumes 12 and 13 of the light novel, the 2-part Paladin of the Holy Kingdom arc, as well as the Overlord Sacred Kingdom movie. Now firstly, let's get terminology out of the way. With Overlord being around for as long as it has, there's several translations, some being good and some very not. For example, you'll hear me refer to the Roble Holy Kingdom, which is the same as the Roble Sacred Kingdom, which is what the movie and the light novel ran with. Holy and sacred being pretty synonymous, I just find holy rolls off the tongue better. There's going to be a few others that'll come up, so I'll mention them if they become relevant, as coming from different mediums can mean each reader or watcher is coming in with different terms.
I do the talking, you do the translating, aight?
For example, what's a demihuman? Demihuman is one of the 3 classifications for the racial group options from the Yggdrasil video game. The others I'm going to be using being human and grotesque. Human's the same across most translation, but the light novel calls demihumans subhumans. I'm using grotesque for the same reason as holy, because the other term for them is heteromorphic. So human, demihuman, and grotesque. To begin with, human doesn't actually mean only humans. It includes human-adjacent fantasy races such as elves and dwarves. It also includes human plus various appendages and or other unique physical characteristics such as human with rainbow eyes or human with an obnoxious horn in the middle of their head.
Oh, don't worry. I think it's reversible.
Demihumans are all the races that could be considered monstrously human-adjacent. Trolls, goblins, orcs, lizard men, beast men, rabbit men. Although they can get on the weirder side. And grotesques are all the definitively inhuman races. Slimes, dragons, demons, angels, golems, vampires, bugs. These differences between racial classifications weren't purely about physical appearance, though that did play a role. In Yggdrasil, levels were divided into 2 groups, racial levels and job class levels. Human races don't get any racial levels. Humans don't level up into senior citizen, elves don't evolve up into ancient elves. Demihumans and grotesques, however, get racial levels from their choice of species. A level 1 human's first class might be warrior, and a level 1 elf's first class might be ranger. But if you wanted to make a cool demon character, your first class would be 1 racial level an imp. And then get that to level 10 to unlock racial classes to eventually get stuff like archdemon and succubus. The way this worked out in Yggdrasil was that while the Humanesques had more freedom and options for their final build, the Demihumans and Grotesques had an easier early game as well as some powerful racial abilities from the higher tier racial classes. The enmity from that contributing to human race players banding together to play or kill low-level Demihuman and Grotesques. Something which almost made Momonga quit Yggdrasil, but eventually brought the guild of Einzelwogen together. However, in the new world with actual living creatures, humans barely survived into adulthood, so those early level advantages really put humans on the back foot. Evenly leveled humans weren't guaranteed success either, i.e. a human with 2 levels in farmer, 1 level in cook, and 2 levels in archer is not beating a lizard man with 5 levels in lizard man.
Oh, fuck.
Now, you should have a good idea what a demi-human is in concept, as well as what distinguishes them from the other special groups, which brings us one step closer to the Demihuman Alliance. However, before we talk about the Alliance, we need to talk about the Demihumans. In my last video, I mentioned that the Demihuman Alliance consisted of 18 species, but with the Sacred Kingdom movie, that actually jumps to 20 or 21, not counting the various demons. However, the home of these species, the Abellion Hills, is inhabited by even more than that. But first, I need to mention the issue with borders. In my Rise of the Sorcerer Kingdom video, the opening title card says explicitly, borders are an estimation, obviously. But for most of the video, the borders are mostly logical deductions. Until I show borders for the Abellion Hills. These borders are completely fabricated estimations.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
To begin with, the size of the hills themselves are an unknown. At the bare minimum, it encapsulates the hills to the north, but it's also often generalized as areas inhabited by demihumans, even if those areas aren't actual hills. So while my estimate may be a little generous, you're welcome to have your own interpretation, but I'm the one making the video.
Are you in charge here?
Wrong.
The other important factor is lack of unifications. For convenience, I'm typically showing these demi-human tribes as unified blobs, but for the most part this isn't the case, as there are multiple competing tribes within each species, and only a handful of species were unified before the Demihuman Alliance's creation. So the way that this is going to play out is I'm going to run through every species in the Demihuman Alliance, listing their name, physical description, and any unique abilities they possess or information about their lifestyles. Lastly, a noble or accomplished member that you might meet in Paladin of the Holy Kingdom, if there is one. Some of these guys will be real quick to get through, but others are given a lot more meaty information, so bear with me. I've also separated these races into categories for convenience. The largest category is the 21 or so races that become the members of the future Demihuman Alliance, further broken down into 9 main invasion army, 4 secondary army, 5 low population and powerful individuals, and 3 hills garrison. Makes sense?
Lizard, 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 lizard.
Snake men. Heads like cobras with snake tails attached to a bipedal lizard body, thought to be closely related to lizard men. They produce venom from their mouth, which they apply to their weapons, which are crude pikes, which makes close combat against them inadvisable. However, with training or microdosing, some humans in the Holy Kingdom have reached a point that they're able to resist the venom. Their scales provide some defense, however, not against sharpened metals. They use their tails to great effect in combat and have snake-like senses, which allow them to operate well in the dark, likely indicating some level of infrared detection like most snakes have when flicking out their tongues. However, this detection isn't so balance-breaking that trained humans couldn't manage it in the dark against them. They're also cold-blooded, so they loathe anything cold since it will drain their precious body heat, which is why they don't use metal armor, making them especially vulnerable targets to skilled archers.
Mole.
Armats. Mole rat. They're mole rats. Mole rat-like, with thick fur considered to be like iron, giving Armats natural defenses rivaling human steel plate. They're considered to be close relatives to the Quagga.
But I cannot see, I'm legally blind.
Cave-in resembles apes slightly larger than humans with blue skin and white fur. They also have pointed ears, making them possibly more related to goblins. Their eyes have long atrophied, indicating they lived underground for ages. They kind of look like Morlocks.
Who's that Pokemon?
Bladers. First race listed that is a grotesque, however they, like another race coming up, are affected by spells targeting demihumans, thus they end up incorrectly classed. Their fingernails sprouted into knife blades, and they have an exoskeleton armor, which is more protective than steel plate. Pteropses, Pteropses, dinosaurs, well, technically flying reptiles. They're sapient pterodactyls. Yes, the Japanese spelling of their name actually puts the P there. It's definitely just to clearly evoke the pterosaur spelling, but it's funny that in-universe they're pteropses. They can fly, making them particularly capable against human structures like walls around cities or, the Great Wall. However, flight is not indefinite for them, requiring a lot of strength. Also, from the way that they ascend into the air without flapping for buildup, it's also suggested that magic or perhaps a racial ability is involved. When not flying, their wings can generate winds strong enough to split armor, making them dangerous on the ground or in the sky.
Spider.
Spidon. Spider folk. It's just man spiders. They produce silk webbings from their mouth that are as hard as steel, which they use to make clothing and items. Perhaps they'll start a booming textiles industry in the future, if they survive the future, that is. Horerunners. Bipedal horses. They're bipedal horses. Well, hairier than normal horses. Think of a faun or satyr from Greek mythology with the hairy goat legs. They can run for extended periods of time and have exceptional mobility.
What the fuck is this?
Zerun. This one's a doozy. The Zerun are the other grotesque race that, due to a racial weakness against race-specific spells, they're affected by magic that's effective against demihumans. A little convoluted, but... They seem to be small purple maggot creatures that grow up into big weirdo blue centaurs with maggots and hairy eels instead of horse and human. Although we only see females as the maggot eels, and the one male we meet is all maggot, so the full extent of their sexual dimorphism is unknown. Oh, and weird centaurs are definitely going to come up again. That being said, apparently the males are quite rare, and thus highly valued. But in a crisis, they demonstrate hermaphroditism, where a female can shift to male, though how we find the Zerun in the story, it seems that this is considered less than ideal than just protecting their males. They live amongst thousands of sinkholes in the northern Abellion Hills, which cause them to evolve color blindness due to the low light levels in the holes. They consume the remains of their fallen as a sign of respect and mourning. Their notable person, and the first one on this list, is BBZ, the Prince of Zerun. Purple Maggot I mentioned earlier. He's a relatively high-tier magic caster, and uses a unique kind of magic spells using Chinese Yin 5 elements, and seems to be specialized towards the wood element. Being pampered his whole life, he takes pride in his body and is a bit of a narcissist about it, though unlike what you would expect of a demi-human royal, he's quite considerate. He's also brave and composed, able to capably plan around and deal with intense situations as they occur. Ogres. Thick hide, stanky, low intelligence. Big, strong, and nasty, also night vision, as if that wasn't a terrifying combination enough without it. Though they do eat humans, this is due to ease of capture rather than preferential diet. They're dumbasses, but are loyal, so they end up cooperating with each other and goblins, although hunger trumps loyalty any day. Not much to say, just the same you've seen in previous Overlord.
As the ogres are coming to get ya!
This time they're also wielding huge crossbows. Bafok. Oh, this one's another doozy. Goatmen that live in the mountainous regions of the Abellion Hills. Like real goats, their unique hooves allow them to scale any surface with even the slightest bumps or depression, meaning they could scale city walls with ease. Even though they're goats, Bafok are also carnivorous. Their fur is noted to tangle slashing swords and steadily blunting their edge, so it was important to clear the fur off of the blade after killing a Buffolk. Some are specially classed as berserkers, which give them an immunity to terror-inducing abilities, though it's just an immunity to higher-tier psychic attacks. The Bawfolk are actually one of the few species of the Abellion Hills that were unified before their demonic subjugation, this being done by their notable leader. Their notable leader is Busser, the Breaker Lord. He's larger than other Bawfolk. He has silver fur and horns curled like a mountain goat. He has encased his horn tips with golden shells socketed with jewels. He wears a breastplate with a turtle shell pattern, as well as a reddish-brown cape made from animal hide. He wields a large shield and a heavy sword. He is charismatic and proud. His combat skills are oriented towards weapon breaking, but this wasn't limited to martial equipment, as his weapon breaking also worked on claws, fangs, horns, and other natural weapons, as well as magically summoned weapons. Apparently in the past, he traded with dark dwarves for magic items and equipment, maybe explaining why he has such useful items on his person. He also values the latest fashion, though his tastes are questionable at best.
So you guys, you ever eat cheese? Cheese is a funny thing. Cheese is a strange thing. I always wonder, like, what is cheese? Where does it go?
Stone Eaters. Big hairy apes. Eat stone and can spit them out as a ranged projectile, but they can only do this so many times a day. High-level ones can get physical buffs depending on the minerals that they're eating, though most Stone Eaters can only carry up to 3 buffs at a time from this. In the first Overlord gacha game, Mass for the Dead, there's a colony of them living to the north of Urantil in a cave and quarry. Whether this is true in the main canon is unknown, but the free city of Vadis was also first introduced in the same mobile game, and it entered main canon at the same time that the Holy Kingdom movie dropped, with the Phantom Ship of the Cat's Plains bonus volume. They live in tribes, like pretty much all Demihumans on this list. At the top of the hierarchy is their king, Halisha Ankara, the White Elder, who wears enchanted golden armor. Mischievous to his allies and completely sadistic to his enemies, and he's kind of a dick. Unlike your average Stone Eaters, he can actually load more than 3 raw mineral buffs. That and his exceptional monk abilities cause him to be arrogant and overconfident, something that surely won't bite him in the ass in the future.
Oh, he needs some milk!
You son of a bitch.
Orthroses. And so we return to weird centaurs. Essentially, these are beastman centaurs, being quadrupedal with their lower bodies being reminiscent of carnivorous beasts like big cats. While being less mobile than your normal horse centaur, they have higher fighting power. Apparently, they actually rely on the other cat centaur species on this list for various things, but what those things are is complete unknown. As for the other cat centaurs,
We get there when we get there.
they're led by Hectowise Aragara. Try saying that 10 times drunk. And this guy is something special. Firstly, his appearance is that of a large, dark fur cat centaur. He wears intricate armor, including huge pauldrons, horseback armor, and arm and front leg bracers, with unique carvings on it, such as a six-pack. And the bottom of the cuirass features dangly leather straps. And he wears an ornate helmet with a face guard, which features a prominent red plume on the top. And he wields a lance. This man is a professional. He is a master general renowned across the Abellion Hills, specifically cited as being able to challenge an army 10 times larger than his own force and overcoming them in a guaranteed victory. Basically, as long as Hectowise isn't fighting alone, he ain't losing. It's noted he also holds respect for the other cat centaur race on this list, as a species recognizing their innate strength, thusly respecting those individuals regardless of their personal accomplishments.
Just imagine, Tarnished, what those 4 armpits must smell
I'm going to leave now.
Magaroses. One of the few races of demihumans that could be considered similar to humans. They are 4 arms, 4 eyes, spiny necks, 2-toed clawed feet, gray skin, and whatever the fuck is going on with their mouths notwithstanding. At the very least, they consider themselves very alike to humans appearance-wise, to the point that they flatly reject eating humans and find it disgusting what other demihumans suggested. This race is particularly powerful in regards to magic, being born with the innate ability to use 4th tier magic. But it seems that Magiroses struggle to get past the 4th tier wall, with 5th tier casters being few and far between, considered a lord variant of the species. This is even more surprising considering they're quite long-lived, so you'd think it'd be more common for the older ones to have higher tier magic, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Their ruler is Nazrene Beltkur, Elementria, or Ice Flame Thunder depending on your translation. This name is given due to her signature magic casting, where she casts 3 different types of elemental magic from 3 of her 4 hands. She seems to be an older lass, as one of the other notable leaders of the Demihumans had known about her while he was a child. To said Demihuman, this indicated that she was past the halfway point of her species' natural lifespan. Also, she goes through quite an effort to apply cosmetics to mask her age, as well as using a floral fragrance to mask her, old folks stench, as the Demihuman calls it.
Brother,
Her age and appearance being a pretty touchy subject for her, as she takes great pride in her looks. As I mentioned before, she's quite an adept magic caster, with a handful of elemental spells as well as the ability to create new spell variants. Though all her magic seems to be oriented toward offense, which may stem from her arrogance, never imagining that she might end up in a scenario where magic for escaping would be required. Speaking of that arrogance, while she is haughty and often acts with an air of superiority, she's much more thoughtful and capable of keeping her emotions in check, unlike some of her more unhinged colleagues. Her most intriguing aspects in the story is her desire to birth the Demon Emperor's child. Rather than a genuine attraction to Demiurge, this is more likely due to the desire for a powerful lineage, and the belief that the evil Emperor would favor the race that his child belongs to. She also has an armband that gives her immunity to death magic once a day, even high-level death magic in the 8th tier. Something that the movie conveniently left out.
somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
Water ogres, but not like the ogres that we previously mentioned, more like the Japanese idea of ogres, oni. They have pale blue skin and a single horn on the forehead. Their alignment with water and the ability to control it is their notable feature, one such being an ability to shift into a mist form to avoid range damage. However, like most things, this ability has a daily limit to the amount it can trigger. Overall, good fighters with high stamina. Priam! Earth ogres, literally just the same thing as the last one, but earth instead of water and probably brown instead of blue.
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
Nagarajas. Though their name starts with Naga, they and Naga are completely different races, and they don't like each other. Nagarajas are born with an inherent ability to cast a variety of spells, and equipped weapons and armor too, giving them a lot of offense and defense options. The notable Nagarajas is Rokesh, known as Rainbow Scales, who is the most powerful demihuman in the Abellion Hills, a capable leader and carries several powerful items. Rainbow Skills is given to him for his gleaming and chaotic color blend that make up his scales. Scales that, by the way, are considered to have the hardness on par with the scales of a dragon due to Nagaraj's higher tier magic resistance. A far cry from many other demihumans, he's serious and patient, traits that make him a capable and reliable leader. That, paired with his combat abilities, make him the perfect choice to become the liaison to Yaldabaoth and highest non-demon authority in the Demihuman Alliance. He's also not power-hungry or particularly belligerent, and he only invokes his authority when needed to keep his unhinged fellows in check. The author Maruyama notes that with Rakesh working alongside the other hero-tier demihumans in the Abellion Hills, some of which we've already talked about, they'd have the power to possibly challenge the Pleiades, whose level ranged from 40 to 60s. Spriggans. Tree people. They have the abilities to change their size and shape and are considered a kind race, evil Spriggans being rare, though they have the potential to go on a rampage and become incredibly difficult to deal with.
I'm a cat. I'm a sexy cat.
Zoosteas, the other cat centaurs, being related to both the previously mentioned Orthruses and traditional centaurs. 3 words: carnivorous heavy cavalry. Mobile infantry tanks but made of saber-toothed tigers. As saber-toothed carnivores, they eat man flesh, but they have no particular preference for it. Beef and horse are where it's at. But fresh human loin was preferable to preserved meat like jerky. Though they are bestial and savage race to the core, especially in combat, culturally, Zoostias hold a belief in composure, as well as a kind of adult etiquette, considering things like making animal noises shameful and immature. As mentioned several minutes ago, they as a species have mutual respect and camaraderie with the Orthruses, and are relied upon by the other big cat centaurs, but doing what we don't know. The strongest warrior among the Zoostias is named Demon Claw, a legacy and ancient title inherited from father to son. The current holder of the epithet is Vijar Rajandala, crushing his foes with a kick-ass enchanted great axe named Edgewing. He also has a neutral, more positive-leaning karma, rather than the traditional human expectation that he would be evil. He's less malicious than several of his demi-human comrades, but still enjoys sparing strong foes to fight again or hunt them for sport. He has a distinct enthusiasm for battle and yearns to prove himself, as his inheritance of the Demon Claw title was a recent event, and he's yet to prove himself to himself and the other Demihumans, at least not by the time that Tall, Dark, and Handsome showed up over there. He has a habit of undermining the authority of other Demihumans he's collaborating with, rejecting punctuality and questioning decisions, in an effort to goad them into combat to bolster his combat reputation. However, the other truly powerful Demihumans like Rakesh consider this to be less of a threat and more of an annoyance. These next three are alluded to within the events of the light novel, but not described. It would make sense lore-wise that these three races were composed of the members of the Demihuman Alliance that garrisoned the Abellion Hills, but that is technically speculation. Bat. It's bat people. Man-bat. Armored gorillas. Tree. Tree people. It's entirely possible that these might be Spriggans, or a more high-populous subspecies.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
So that's all the Demihumans. Well, in the Abellion Hills. We're not even going to touch into how the center of the continent is filled to the brim with other powerful Demihumans. There were very likely many more Demihumans in the Abellion Hills. However, they were unfortunately wiped out entirely, unworthy to even be enslaved, or perhaps spirited away to the depths of cruelty.
What? When? Where?
This was originally supposed to be a single video, but rather than have you beautiful patient viewers wait a fuck ton longer for the full video, I figured I'd chop off this beginning half as its own video, focusing on the Demihumans of the Demihuman Alliance, whilst I keep working on the, other part of the Demihuman Alliance. So, I guess I'll see you guys in part 2.